Now, there are a couple different things that I want to hit with this particular slide before we go into our review. And the first one is one that I'm particularly interested in, partly because I'm a counselor and I talk to people about this thing that we refer to as emotional intelligence. And so we go from academics and problem solving and things like that to something that might be referred to as social intelligence. And it has to do with a number of different components that I just want to highlight for you as we begin to wind down in this particular module. I think we all know that people that are intelligent, all right, smart people, may not have a lot of social skills. And so just because somebody is intelligent doesn't necessarily mean that they are emotionally intelligent. And we've got lots of examples of that in terms of social intelligence. The key components in understanding, let me write this out here. The key components in understanding social intelligence are really four different component parts. And the first one is to perceive emotions. And that means perceiving emotions in other people. And what you find is a lot of times people who go into the people helping business or even in ministry typically have a fairly high level of social or emotional intelligence. So they can perceive emotions, recognizing them in faces, in stories, in music. Secondly, they are good at understanding emotions. They grasp the nature of how they are displayed and how they are, how they change, and that often comes in quite handy in terms of helping people, responding to them, predicting how they might change, what might happen. Another one is managing emotions, that is how to express them in a socially or contextually appropriate way. And those, sometimes you find people who do not modulate their emotions very well. So when they burn hot everywhere. And then the last component part really is to use emotions in adaptive ways. So using emotions adaptively. And each of these, you see people who are very good at managing an emotional environment and can manage their own effectively, and then oftentimes are able to help others do the same. So emotional intelligence is a key component when we talk about psychology and understanding things, et cetera, that are key in understanding people in general. The last component part here is really can we actually measure intelligence neurologically? So let me write down intelligence. And neurologic assessment. And the interesting thing about it is that when you really get right down to it, when we're assessing intelligence, we're assessing it not at the neurological level. We're assessing it really at the functional level. And so we can look at, I suppose we could look at brain size and capacity, for example, or complexity, to make some predictions about somebody's intelligence, although the correlation is far from 1-to-1. So when the example is given of Lord Byron, when he died, his brain was 5 pounds, not the normal 3 pounds. in Beethoven, we saw a variety of convolutions in his brain that would suggest more brain tissue itself. But the problem is that those are always retrospective. In other words, the person has already died. We really aren't able to look at that in vivo, obviously. And a lot of times, a good example, another person would be Einstein. His was 15% larger just in the parietal lobe, which happens to be this very place for processing mathematics and so forth. So we've got some evidence, but the problem is that we really can't split somebody's cranium open and check out brain size and complexity to be able to say, well, oh, you're smart. Well, and that's probably by the time that we've split their brain open, they're not able to function anyway. So the second thing really is brain function. And like I said, generally what we do when we're assessing intelligence is we're assessing how the brain actually functions and at what speed it does. And so essentially people who perceive more quickly are especially likely. So processing speed is one of those component parts that we tend to look at in terms of increased intelligence. The particular aspects of how somebody operates in a variety of contexts, whether that's short-term memory, whether that's even the reversed digit span, which is spatial relations, are all component parts which often give us clues to somebody's intelligence. But each one of these, the thing to keep in mind and to let me underline for you on a regular basis, is that the best thing that we can do, or at least the least thing we can do to get a handle on somebody's intelligence, is to actually look at their function. And what it ends up coming down to is speed. And then we make some other conclusions accordingly. Nonverbal intelligence, in other words, my ability to manipulate objects, which is pictured in your book of doing mazes, for example, is nonverbal intelligence. Creating designs with blocks is another nonverbal intelligence. I'm not telling you anything when I'm manipulating the blocks to create some design. And we'll look at that in a little bit more detail when we actually talk about intelligence tests themselves.